I'm going to introduce our panel moderator, Jane Danbold, who is Transitional Kindergarten Coordinator at the San Mateo County Office of Education. She is here, your panel is here, and they are going to each stand when they're speaking so that you can see them. And I will turn it over to Jane to introduce the panel. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay at the back? Yep, great. I'm delighted to introduce you today 3 exemplary administrators from the San Mateo-Foster City School District. They are Susan Glines from Laurel School, Stephanie Fraumeni from the Annex, the district after-school program, and Cheryl Shrewsbury, the early childhood education principal for the district. And they're here today to talk with us and share the success of the San Mateo-Foster City School District in their implementation of PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention and Support. San Mateo-Foster City recognizes that, just as Dr. Thompson showed us this morning, that school success requires so much more than academic skills. The goal of their initiative is to align consistent, positive behavioral expectations and outcomes across the years by starting early in preschool and across a child's school day by including the Annex that Stephanie's going to talk about for us. So Stephanie's going to start off by giving us an overview of PBIS. Then Susan's going to tell us about the progress that the district has made with the initiative. And then each principal in turn will tell us about PBIS in their setting before Cheryl concludes for us by telling us about next steps in San Mateo-Foster City. So let's get started with Stephanie.
So essentially, when we talk about PBIS, we're talking about a system approach in your programs where the adults come to an agreement on what the expected behavior of children should be. And that could be inside of the classroom, transitions, walking in line, lunch, and in my programs, after school. So that means you have to give the adults time to have dialogue on what those expected behaviors should be, indoors and outdoors. Oh, the slideshow is advancing. Right, here we go. We want to make sure that it's not a one-stop shop kind of a system, because sometimes we need to make adjustments for individual students or small groups of students. And so you have to step back and take a look at what's working, what's not working, and tweak the different ways that you're providing success for the children with those behavioral expectations. And you want to be doing it in a safe environment. And when I say that, I don't mean just for the children, but for the adults as well. Because the adults need to know that mistakes need to be looked at as a platform for learning. So if we tried it once, maybe it didn't work. If we tried it twice, and we allow that time to tweak what we need to do for the kids so that they can be successful. So we have traditional approaches that we often see in classrooms, and I know as a teacher, principal, and even as a parent, I have used these traditional approaches where we tend to focus on the student's problem behavior. We think that punishing is going to change the behavior, timeouts, for instance. And then we have that conversation, what are you supposed to do when? And when we look at the When we look at the PBIS behavior supports, what you're really doing is trying to replace the unwanted behavior with new behaviors and skills. So what that means is that you're altering environments, as I mentioned earlier. You're teaching appropriate skills. A lot of times we get stuck in, this is a second grader, they should know how to behave in class. They should know what to do at recess or PE, but that's not the case. We have to teach them the skills that we're expecting them to do. And then we want to reward appropriate behavior. As adults, we like people to tell us when we're doing things right and appropriately. Children need that constant reward when they are doing what we're asking them to do. And in a PBIS approach, the what do we do in between is huge. Oftentimes in classrooms, we're going to see the teachers reviewing the expectations or the rules at the beginning of the year and right before a holiday when the behavior starts ramping up. In a PBIS approach, what you're going to do is you're going to constantly revisit those expectations. You may do it weekly, You may do it twice a week. You may do it every day. Again, you're catering it to the needs of the group that you're working with. And you want to reward them often as you continue to revisit what you're supposed to do. Okay, so just as a recap in terms of the main ideas for PBIS, is you're really looking at your environment, creating an environment that's going to work for kids, and knowing that you may need to tweak it for individual or small groups of students. You also, you want to speak to the adults. I always tell my staff, you're the models for these kids. They are watching you constantly. They're watching the way you interact with each other as adults, and they're watching the way you're interacting with students. And so if we're demanding these expectations from children, the adults need to be modeling it as well. And that's a really huge piece in the programs that I run in the after-school programs. So that's a very brief overview of what PBIS is. And what Susan, principal of Laurel School, is going to do for us is she's going to talk about how PBIS fits in our district in San Mateo-Foster City.
So in our district, we were able to, we had the opportunity, I think a couple years ago, to recreate our strategic plan. And when we developed that plan, you can see we came up with 3 pillars. And one being academic achievement, of course, that's very, very important. 21st century learning, which is coming, which is upon us. And we also felt that character and citizenship was equally as important as the other 2. So we came up with these bullets that we want to employ as a district. And we want our students to be supported by community and parent resources and engage healthy lifestyles. And then the 3rd and 4th bullets is where our PBIS comes in. Benefit from a school community empowered to foster social and personal responsibility, and students will effectively resolve conflicts in a respectful manner. And we're recognizing and then also developing a deeper understanding of self and others. And we're recognizing that these need to be taught just like our other subjects, and they're equally as important. In addition, you've all seen this pyramid. The left side is your academic, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 of your academics, but then the other side of the pyramid is your behavior. And PBIS falls into your tier 1. It covers for about, covers 90% of your students. It's a system in the school. And then, of course, there's always those tier 2 and tier 3 situations that come up, and we also have plans for those as well.
Hi. So for those of us in the ECE world, we have long known and understood that social, emotional, and self-regulation competencies are essential for school success. And research has shown that children who enter kindergarten proficient in academics knowledge and also in self-regulation have higher test scores by 3rd grade, in 3rd grade. So in our district, when our preschool teachers are really dedicated and they're really doing their best, and they really understood how important self-regulation and the social-emotional development is for children. And so they were a little bit confused when we approached them with PBIS. And they thought, well, we're already doing this. So our PBIS leadership team asked the teachers to bring to a staff meeting their classroom rules. And then they shared the classroom rules. And the rules consisted of things like don't hit, don't yell, don't run. And as you heard Dr. Thompson mention, that doesn't work very well for children when you put them in the negative sense. So anyway, so after sharing their classroom rules, we shared this slide with them. Whoops, back one. Or forward. We shared this slide with them, and to help them understand that what we needed to do is that we needed to specifically teach the desired behavior. We then actually had a very honest conversation amongst ourselves. And what we realized was that we spent a lot of time focusing on the negative behavior, correcting the inappropriate behavior, and reminding the children, don't leave your things there, don't cry after your mommy leaves you. And so, and we did not spend significant enough time actually recognizing and acknowledging the positive behavior. Thus began our work with PBIS. Once they came to that realization, they were open to PBIS. So PBIS is really a paradigm shift. It's not easy work. I recommend having a PBIS leadership team. And I was really strategic in who I selected. I found 2 teachers, or I actually, asked 2 teachers to be on the PBIS leadership team that I knew, they had a lot of staff influence. And if they weren't in the leadership position, they may have sabotaged it. So I thought, well, the best thing to do is get them on the leadership team. And now they actually present to all the PBIS to the staff. And that's really helped. And it's been a really long and slow process. It doesn't go quickly. Over the last 6 or 8 months, we identified key times during the day that all preschool classrooms had in common. So for instance, cleanup time, how to wash your hands, small group time, free play time. So we looked at those things that they all had in common. And then each team took one of those time periods and they broke them down into steps. And then over several conversations, we looked at the steps. We made sure that there were only 3 to 5 steps for each one of those processes. And we tried to work on the appropriate vocabulary so it would be accessible to all of the children and all the teachers would use it. And during this time of revision and refining, we were actually building consensus. So when the teachers started to practice some of these steps that we came up with, and we developed little pictographs for the children. And when the teachers started to do this, some of them started to use incentives and like stickers and kind of a reward system. But what we found was that that really wasn't necessary, because children, just recognizing and acknowledging their positive behavior was so powerful to children that we didn't need the rewards and the stickers. So throughout this process, it was also really important for the teachers to know that we were learning together. And this had nothing to do with their evaluation process. And they needed to feel safe and to know that we as a group were going to make mistakes and that we were going to learn from the mistakes. And during our staff meetings, we shared challenges that we were encountering and we actually shared successes. So what have we accomplished? We've developed some common expectations, and here's one of them for our free choice time. And so if children run in the classroom now, instead of saying, "Don't run," we say, "Okay, can you show me walking? Good job, you're walking. I like the fact that you're walking." So we tell them what they're supposed to do. We actually have them practice walking. We've developed some common language. If a child hits out on the playground, instead of saying, "Don't hit, you need a timeout, go sit down," what we say is, how do you touch your friend? And now it's so cute because even our English learner children go, "Gently, gently," and they touch themselves like this. So anyway, so we are developing some consistent common language. Our teachers have noticed some positive changes in the children's behavior, and they actually find that PBS is helpful. And so we have these pictographs, as I said, and we're not graphic artists. These are developed by the teachers, and we're using them, and they actually do work. And we have one for arrival time, free choice time, cleanup time, bathroom time, small group time, hand washing time. We're working on some for snack. We're not experts in PBIS. This is a long process, and we're just happy that we have actually begun the process, and we're seeing some positive improvements in the children's behavior.
So a lot like what Cheryl was just talking about, we followed a similar process at our school. I felt like we had, I was noticing a lot of emotional response to children's misbehavior, teachers getting upset and angry, which I didn't like to see that at all. So I really felt like PBIS was a way for us to have a common language in the positive mode, and to give teachers language on how to deal with behavior miscues and missteps and those things. So we started with myself and a team of 3 teachers, and again, I strategically picked those teachers, and we went to a 3-day training at the San Mateo County Office of Education. It was very informative. It gave us time for collaboration, and so that leadership team and I came back to school and we presented to our staff, and then as a team we developed a matrix, and the matrix is a grid, and all the rules that we wanted at our school, or all the procedures, fall under be safe, be responsible, and be respectful. And we looked at all the areas at school, the library, the hallways, the lunch court, all of the areas, and we wrote down what the expectations were for being safe and being respectful and being responsible, and everything you want kids to do fall into those 3 categories. And then we brought that matrix to our staff, and we all looked at it as a staff, and they gave input, and we made revisions, additions, and deletions. And then when we took that matrix and we made signs throughout the school, for example, in the restrooms, there's a sign that's very simple: be quick, be clean. Now I can't remember because I'm nervous, but but it's quick. And we have, walking in the hallways, face forward, hands to your side, be quiet, things like that that we've posted around the school. And they're available, so I see teachers when they're walking down the hallway sometimes stop in front of one of the signs and review what are the expectations. And one of the other things we did was we made videos. We made 3 videos that are really fun. And what the videos show are, and I have an example of one on the next slide, the videos show the adults doing things incorrectly. And of course, that evokes a really, and a response from the kids. They really laugh and they think it's so funny. And then the second part of the video is students following the procedures correctly. And so around these videos, we've also then now developed lesson plans, because just like on Cheryl's slide, it said when they don't know how to read, we teach them how to read. We also are teaching behavior. So we are developing our lesson plans, and they go with the videos, and then let's just show the video. It's a little embarrassing, but I think you'll enjoy it. Okay. So you can see that the kids just thought that was great. Yeah. So you can evoke that emotional response from the kids. They really remember it, and it really opened up a lot of dialogue with the teachers and the students about how they should be behaving around school. So we have the lesson plans that go around this, and now our next steps are we're developing a timeline. We'll probably do this next year where we actually have a schedule for which areas we're focusing on in what week, and really giving the teachers language when there is a miscue, just like Cheryl said, what should you be doing? Show me that. We're really working towards getting away from things like benching kids and timeout, and really teaching them what they need to do. And me personally, well, I also think that what's happening is we're developing better relationships with our students, and that's what all people value the most in life, is a relationship with somebody. So the students know it's okay, they make mistakes, and then they learn from them, and we move on. And it's been very positive. And I don't have any hard data to show, but I do believe that discipline has been made much easier for me at this point.
So I'm going to talk to you about Annex. Annex in our school district is our before and after school program. It's a 4-fee program, but we also have subsidized programs through ACES Proposition 49 funding. And in the Annex programs district-wide, I work with about 100 staff. They're all district contracted staff. They're classified staff. And many of our staff are trying to piece together an 8-hour day. And so that means that they work in other capacities in the school district. They could work with the special education department. They could be working as a para in the classroom, doing supervision on the playground in the food service department. And traditionally, classified staff do not receive a lot of professional development. And when I was looking at these 19 different sites, some sites were doing really well on how they work with children, and others were not. And so I needed to find a way to provide them with tools to work with students. The students that have been sitting in class all day, the students that have been asked to focus on their academics all day, and when we get them in the afternoon, you can only imagine. They need time. They need time to release and run around. But they also have homework time. They also have enrichment time. And some of them also go to different tutoring depending on the school sites that they're at. So the other thing is, if I provided this professional development for my Annex staff, it was twofold, because my hope was that they could use it when they're working in their other capacities, in their other positions in the district. And so what we did was, 2 years ago, I introduced PBIS to my staff. It was a very brief overview. A few of my school sites attended the county training. There were teams from the different after-school programs that went. As Susan mentioned, the professional development was wonderful because it actually embedded time for some planning. And we also work under the premise of what does it look like when we're being respectful, we're being responsible, and we're being safe, both indoors, outdoors, and during homework time. And the other piece that I added was, as I mentioned before, the adults. I didn't want them to say only what they expected of the children, but first, what do we expect of ourselves? So we actually did a matrix of the adults. What are we going to be doing outside, inside, and during homework time? What is active supervision going to look like? How are we going to respond to children when they need assistance, be it behavior, be it homework time? And so after we did the adults, then we did the children. And we're not done. This is a year-long process, and my staff knows that it's a year-long process. There are big matrix charts that weekly or monthly, they come and they look at them and they revise them. And then they post what their expectations. Some are further along than others, but it has been a very positive way to assist my staff in the after-school program with tools that they can use when working with students. And in the next slide, we thought we would include, this was what I was hearing from my staff when they first started implementing using PBIS approaches. I feel better when I use PBIS. It seems as though some challenging kids respond better when I use PBIS. And that one was huge. And this came from somebody that didn't believe this was going to work. And then it works. That just simply, it works. And then I'm focusing what I want them to do rather than getting upset with bad choices. And it's really allowing them not to get so frustrated, but this is what you need to do. This is what it looks like, and focusing and using that positive approach. So it has been successful. We have a lot of work to continue, but it's been very exciting for our staff in the after-school program. So now what Cheryl's going to do is she's going to talk about PBIS as a district and the next steps we're going to be taking through all of our school sites.
So as more of our schools and programs have begun implementing PBIS, we've actually shared our successes in our district leadership meetings or in different forums. And so our district is looking at adding more schools. I mean, we are looking at, is there a way of, doing a systematic approach to PBIS? Would we be adding new schools? Yes, some are voluntarily starting to participate on their own. The district is looking at ways to provide some professional development opportunities in district and sending to trainings out of district. And more sites are actually participating in the San Mateo County Office of Education's PBIS trainings. So we're definitely looking at ways that we can systematize in maybe not PBIS, but systematize some of the social emotional development and self-regulation pieces throughout the district. So thank you very much for your time.